Welcome to our live online presentation with Natural Habitat Adventures. We're here today to talk about Alaska's grizzlies, Kodiak to Katmai. And here to kick off our presentation and set the stage for your presenter is the founder and director of Natural Habitat Adventures, Ben Bressler. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Lee, and welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. I think one of the great things about working at Natural Habitat Adventures is we get to talk about species that we love. Just a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to do a webinar just like this on mountain gorillas, and I had so much fun putting it together and presenting it to our list of people, and several hundred people got to listen to that, and I got to present about a species that I really care for. Well, today we've got Brad Josephs, a biologist from the University of Alaska, who has worked for us for quite some time, many years, guiding our polar bear trips, guiding our China trips to see pandas, and of course guiding our coastal Katmai trips where we travel out by small ship in small groups and come face to face with grizzlies. And I'm not only do I get a chance to do my own presentations about the species that I really care for, I'm really looking forward to hearing Brad, because Brad is one of the world's expert guides, naturalists, and photographers on grizzlies. And getting a chance to hear him today will certainly add to my understanding of this magical species. So I will hereby introduce you to Brad Josephs.
Hey guys, thanks for joining. Well, this is an honor to be able to do this. I'm really excited that Ben asked me to do this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the trip that I've been guiding for 12 years now. And it is really the trip that's allowed me to make my career as a naturalist guide, sort of deviating away from being a biologist, mostly because I think that putting a value on animals through tourism and photography and is the future to conservation. And Natural Habitat certainly is sort of the leader in figuring out how that works, and it's the best company. And I'm just tickled pink to be able to work for Natural Habitat. So this trip is really dear to my heart. It's one that I feel like I really helped design. So when if anybody was to go on this trip, people that have in the past, I think what they're seeing is the best of the grizzly bear, and they're seeing Alaska at its best. And since I'm so passionate about this trip, I think it's seeing me at my best as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and go through. Here's the first picture. Here is an image that I took. I took most of the images in the slideshow, and if they weren't by me, they were by clients that I was guiding, and they donated them over the years. So I got a little collection. But this image for sure is one that was chosen for the cover of the catalog. And I almost fainted. I was so excited when that happened. But yeah, it's the bears that do the miracles. I'm just the middleman. So what kind of bears are we going to be talking about today? They're going to be the coastal brown bear, also known as the Alaska brown bear. I like to say coastal grizzly because people get brown bears and grizzlies mixed up. Sometimes they call black bears that are brown in California brown bears, but in reality these are grizzly bears, the same species as the grizzlies in Yellowstone and Glacier and all these other places. The difference is they are twice as large, and because they have a very rich food source along the coast. Here would be an example of a very large male brown bear. Probably could be within about 1,400 pounds, something like that. So they're definitely big boys. Brown bears also inhabit very rich, concentrated habitats, such as this mouth of the salmon stream. And in certain parts of Alaska, and the coast of Katmai being one, it's the densest population of bears in the world. So you've got the biggest bears and the densest populations. Everybody loves bears. It's just it's an animal unlike any that's just so charismatic, and they just get to people's hearts for a lot of reasons, and I'm always fascinated by that. Why do I love bears so much? And so bears are animated, they're comical, they're cute, and I think that they're entertaining, unlike as much as any animal out there. They're also extremely intelligent. Imagine the world's smartest dog and even be smarter than that. That's how bears are. They've got great vision, at least as good as ours, unlike, you know, the myths that they're blind. They're not. They've got a sense of smell 2,000 times greater than us, so they live in a different dimension. So it's really, to see bears and understand bears, it's an intelligent animal with senses that are sort of supernatural. Everything's fascinating about them, and they're also kind of scary. And you know, you can't hide that fact. And this trip is not dangerous. I'll put that as a disclaimer. But bears tend to intimidate people, or and myself for sure, and that fascinates things. I think they're fascinated by what scares them. I think that, you know, looking at the media and stuff, you see what's popular. People want to learn about and want to see what's scary. And when you're in bear country, you're not really in control. And I think that's an important part about bears, is they're a humbling animal. I guess that latter part about them being humbling and scary to a lot of people, and that's no secret, is the reason, one of the main reasons why they have been exterminated through most of their range in North America, the grizzlies, all the way down from Mexico to the plains of Kansas and Nebraska, all the way through California, all the way to the Arctic, to the Arctic coast. I mean, so you're looking at this map, it tells me two things. First of all, is how incredibly adaptable the grizzly is. The grizzly can live in the deserts of Mexico, the Chihuahua Desert, I mean the Sonoran Desert, Mojave Desert. I'm looking at all these deserts. They can live out on the plains amidst the old but giant bison herds. They can live on the coast, and they can live all the way up to, you know, rub elbows with polar bears and Inuits. So, I mean, you just got to be fascinated by an animal that can utilize such different habitats like that. Of course, it's also very, very sad. In fact, for somebody like me that loves grizzlies so much, it's incredibly, you know, I would say traumatizing to look at a map like this and look at that that lighter green portion where they used to live and they don't live anymore. Now, the character has been stripped of that habitat. The monster, the ruler, is gone, and how can you even put a handle on how tragic that is? Luckily, some of the wilderness up in the northwest, that being British Columbia, Alberta, the territories, and Alaska, was too harsh, too remote, too rugged for people to exterminate them. And now we've learned that we need to preserve these kind of animals. And so places in Alaska, especially in coastal Canada, still have the populations of bears that they did when Lewis and Clark explored the West. It hasn't changed. So we're lucky enough to live in a generation where we can still explore and enjoy bear country. Bears are very important for a lot of reasons, and first, foremost, and one a lot of people don't realize, even especially today, that I see people don't understand, is that they're very important to their habitat. I call them the greatest stewards of their own habitat. And of course, you're looking at going, wow, this guy's got a picture of a little piece of fish scrap and a giant pile of bear poop. He must be a little weird, and I am a little bit weird when it comes to bears, but I'll explain why. Bears transport nutrients into the habitat. So the corridors that hold salmon runs and things like that are way, way more healthy when you have good populations of bears. Those bears clean the creeks up of dead salmon and things like that, and I can go into great detail about this sort of stuff. But just take it from me that if you have a salmon stream or a habitat with bears present, that is going to be far more healthy, productive habitat, and that's very important for us to preserve bears because they're the greatest stewards of their own habitat. Bears are also what you might call an umbrella species. So when you decide to preserve bears, because whatever reason, because you want to photograph them, you want to view them, they're at the very top, and the habitat that they utilize must be totally pristine. So everything else that lives in that habitat will also be protected, such as wolves, foxes, all these other animals that I'll talk about probably around the end of the show. I think one of the most important parts about this trip is it helps to put a value on bears in their intact ecosystems alive. Unfortunately, here in Alaska, for many years, bears are looked at sometimes as a nuisance, sometimes as a competitor for other animals that humans want to hunt. And also to put a value on as trophies, and I think that's very sad. So they're worth a lot of money for trophies, but you know what now? Because folks come up and they want to view bears just like you guys, and they love bears. They're worth more alive than dead. People they're putting down over the years their rifles and guns and picking up cameras. And instead of a trophy on their wall, they're getting a trophy image like these images. And I think that's incredibly important. And it's not all about just images; it's about experiences too. It's seeing and building those memories, and getting the video footage or images. That is the real trophy now that bears can provide if treated the right way, and if treated the right way. And I think that on the coast of Katmai here is by far the greatest example of a place. The coast of Katmai is the ultimate place to experience bears and photograph bears. For a lot of reasons, they don't view people as a threat here. This is a national park, and it's been a national park for a long time. So they're not hunted, so they don't have bad experiences. They also don't have exposure to the general public. You may say, well, in Yellowstone, those grizzlies are dangerous, and that's a national park, but this is a very limited amount of people that come out to this remote area, and the only people that come out are guided. So the bears have a very neutral relationship with humans, and so it allows for the best place to view and photograph them. The coast of Katmai specifically is kind of one of the best kept secrets of photographers and film crews, and I would say bear viewing aficionados, people that really love to experience bears in their habitat. One reason is that you're at eye level with the bears, and I cannot emphasize how important that is for photography. If you're up in a boat or up on a platform or a stand, or even up on a high bank or in a vehicle, it's not the same as if you're on eye level. I know you guys are thinking, wow, what happened to the guy that took this picture? We get pictures like this and experiences like this all the time. This bear was chasing after salmon, and we just happened to be sitting on the other side of the creek. So there was no danger at all, but there's certainly a lot of power in this image. This really captures that. Anything else? These are some other just specialty when sometimes professional photographers come out, film crews, things like that, and this is sort of what they want. They want to be on eye level and good light with a bear facing them with catch light in the eye, things like that. This is the stuff that the coast of Katmai can provide and nowhere else. Again, all these bears are just chasing salmon and basically don't mind that we're sitting watching. Another more subtle aspect about why the coast of Katmai is so great is brown bears live like this along the coast of Alaska and British Columbia, but the Katmai coast is a little bit sheltered, or quite a bit sheltered, by some large mountain ranges, so we're in a little bit of a rain shadow. So while it is a coastal habitat, enough to provide enough food for them to be large and lots of them, the weather tends to be better, a lot better than other areas, since it's southeast Alaska or even over on Kodiak. So you get these pretty common, this golden light for people that want to enjoy their experience or photograph. Sunshine is always wonderful. The coast of Katmai has what I believe is some of the greatest scenery in the whole state of Alaska. So not only do you have this awesome aspect of bears, but you also have scenery that even if the bears weren't there, it'd be worth it. I mean, people go to places like New Zealand and Patagonia, and while there may be some wildlife there, it's not really the draw. The scenery is the draw. If there was no wildlife on the coast of Katmai, of course, I hope I never see that day. But even if there was not, you could still go, and it would be well worth the trip just for the scenery alone. So to mix the bears and the scenery is unbelievable. It's when you're looking at a picture like this, what do you want to look at? Those volcanic ash mountains, the beautiful river, the bears, and just the whole thing is just glaciers coming down to sea level. Okay, so how does this trip work? Well, the trip starts in Kodiak, which is it's a town of about 6,000 people on the Kodiak archipelago. You cannot visit it by road. It's inaccessible, it's remote. But it is very easily accessible on a flight from Anchorage. There's many flights per day. It takes about an hour, and it's a reasonable cost. And Kodiak's an easy place to get to, and that's where the trip begins. The first couple days of the trip, the first full day for sure, and is spent exploring Kodiak Island. And it's something that a lot of people don't even realize when they book the trip, that they get to see this part of Alaska. When you go to Alaska, it's very important that you get off the road system. You got to get in the wilderness, of course, and that's what we do to go see the bears. But you also want to feel a frontier town, and Kodiak is a great example of a frontier town. It's got a little bit of well, more than a little bit of a Wild West feel to it. You're on the edge of nowhere, the place where only very tough people live. There's a Coast Guard base there, and those Coast Guard guys are the best in the world, and the helicopter rescue guys. They protect the marine waters of all of western Alaska, based out of Kodiak, so that adds an interesting aspect to the culture. It's also a commercial fishing port. Kodiak, as you can see here, one of the other names for it's the Emerald Island, because it's just velvet, vast, green slopes. It's on a summer day, it's just so green it almost hurts to look at when you got that blue water and blue sky, and it's among the most beautiful places in the world. Also, a lot of these photographs are taken by Marion and Owen, who you guys will meet. When you're in Kodiak, I am not there because I'm out on the coast of Katmai and I don't go back and forth. But we have a team of the best to explore Kodiak with. It's Marion Owen, who's a very famous gardener and professional photographer, and she's taken a lot of these pictures, and a local guide that I handpicked, and I just love her to death, Linda Himmelblum, and she has been in Kodiak for 25 years, and she's also a professor at the college in geology. So you're going to see Kodiak through the expert's eyes. The Alutiiq natives have inhabited Kodiak for over 7,000 years. So there's a very, very rich history. And then also in the 18th century, Russian immigrants created this as the capital of Russian Alaska. And that history is present. There's two beautiful museums. This is the Baranof Museum and also the Eluting Museum. These are places that you guys, that travelers go visit. This is the famous Russian Orthodox Church right there in town. Another awesome image by Marion Owen. So Marion Owen and her husband Marty have a boat, beautiful boat called the Seabreeze, and that full day in Kodiak, she takes the group out to explore the inlets and bays and things for marine wildlife, and she's also a gourmet cook, and so she cooks dinner on the boat. It's a great chance to go out and see some of the wildlife in the waters of Kodiak, such as puffins. You take a walk out to Long Island, where you can see sea lion. And there's also a World War II fort there. There was a pretty rich World War II history out when the Japanese were possibly going to attack. The Kodiak was fortified with all kinds of bunkers and things, and people will tour that. Kodiak is very famous for its Kodiak Grizzlies, Kodiak bears. The Kodiak portion of the trip doesn't really entail much bear viewing, although it's on a fairly regular basis that the travelers will get a glimpse of the Kodiak bears. But there's a pretty good reason why we don't spend much time looking for these Kodiak bears. As I mentioned, the Katmai National Park, there's no hunting. Kodiak does have hunting, and so the bears are very intelligent, and they're much more elusive and difficult to view. So don't spend a ton of time looking for these Kodiak bears. What's the difference in the bears? The behavior and size and appearance is virtually none. There's no difference. Kodiak bears are famous because the largest bear was collected in Kodiak, something like 1,900 pounds. That was the biggest bear ever, because the habitat there is very, very good. But it's also sort of famous to be the biggest bears in the world because they try to promote it as the trophy hunting destination. So, but the point is that that the bear viewing over in Katmai is so far superior to the Kodiak bear viewing, and the bears are very, very not much different. So from Kodiak, the Katmai coast is accessible through floatplane only. So it's about a 45-minute, stunningly beautiful flight on Andrew Airways, who's our favorite air carrier, and I think it's the safest, the best pilots, the best machinery. These are the guys we use to get back and forth from the wilderness to Kodiak safely. And 45 minutes by air, we'll reach Katmai National Park. It's about 2 times the size of Yellowstone. It is a vast, monstrous place. It was originally a national monument in 1918 because in 1912, Mount Katmai erupted, which is the greatest volcanic event in the 20th century, and it created what's the famous Valley of 10,000 Smokes. We won't see that on the trip. It's too far inland, but it was the reason for creation of the park. And this is also the second most volcanic region in the world. The reason is it's right in the sort of the heart of the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Ring of Fire. The Pacific Plate is getting subducted under the North American Plate, which is, I could talk about that for a while, but it gets it's a very dynamic geological place. These are the bays that we frequent here. It's kind of a cool map to see what it looks like. And the volcanoes that are just off the coast, a few miles from the shore, are amazing. These are all active volcanoes or extinct volcanoes at one time. So it's obvious that the geology of it created the protection in the first place. But as they did create this habitat or this park, it also protected one of the greatest populations of brown bears in the world. And now the park mandate is to manage for high populations of brown bears. It's bear paradise. It's bear country that has been unchanged for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the most productive place. Float plane will go from Kodiak, and it lands near the shore in a protected bay, and we will come pick you up in a skiff. You will safely get onto the small boat and go to where you'll be spending the next 4 days and nights, 3 nights, 4 days. We use 2 vessels, and just depends on the schedule of everything, which vessel we use, but people love both vessels. There's not really a preference. We have lots of repeat clients. They come once and they say, I gotta go again. That was the best trip I've ever taken. So they come back, and sometimes they're on a different boat, and they're just different. The one on the right is the MV Waters. It's a 1945 tugboat. Just beautiful. If you're an antique boat aficionado kind of person, it doesn't get any better than this. And it's been converted and renovated and rebuilt, and it's just an awesome boat for this area. And it was the boat that originally started these programs in the early 90s. And before that, it was the boat that was in charge of doing the oil spill cleanup in the late 80s. Although the coast of Katmai got very, very little exposure to the oil. And the other boat that we use is the Kittiwake. For fans of the show Alaska's Deadliest Catch, will enjoy the fact that this is the original Time Bandit, which is the now made famous boat. And those guys built a bigger boat, and their old boat was rebuilt, renovated, and outfitted out to be a charter boat, and that's what we use. And you can see we can put skiffs on the deck and all kinds of stuff. Both boats are very, very stable platforms. We travel in protected bays, and we're sheltered from the weather, so it's almost never that anybody ever gets seasick. So that's always a question. Perfect units to stay in. They're not luxury vessels. These are not cruise ships. You're not going to be spending your time kind of hanging around the boat and wonderful accommodations. I always want to set, but what they are is the ultimate vessels to get in and out for function, and they're adventure boats. And I think that's a good part of seeing the real Alaska, to get out into the wilderness. If you were in a super fancy yacht, it just wouldn't feel the same. I mean, you're on 2 classic Alaskan boats. The crews of these boats also are the best, and we've had them for years, and they're the most competent, the most entertaining guys. We've, captain, engineer, and we have 5-star food on the boat. And, it is an experience, but the main part of the trip is for sure you'll be spending the majority of the daylight hours, which are long, out exploring the habitat, looking for wildlife with me. We do a lot of our viewing by skiff. And a lot of times we go in the shallows, and the people will just kind of hang out in the boat and photograph marine wildlife, birds, things like that. But the main focus of the trip, of course, is getting off the skiff and spending, I would say, probably an average of 8 hours, broken up into 2 excursions with a lunch break in between. On shore, and this is we've gotten off the boat in this image, and we're going ashore. That's everybody's wearing hip boots, and I think this is an easy trip. It's not physically difficult, but there are some limitations. You must be able to jump off the boat, the small boat, and walk through water, maybe knee deep, very rarely deeper than that, maybe an average of, well, sometimes it's 1 foot. We go right up onto the beach, and sometimes we have to walk through the shallows a little bit. But that would be the most difficult part of the trip, just being able to walk through shallow water and jump off the boat. And we definitely have to do that, because that's where we have those incredible experiences with the bears. I love and respect bears. That's my main objective is to appreciate bears and not have any effect on their behavior. So we don't approach bears. You see these pictures, these bears super up close. We're not in the face of the bears. We don't ever affect their habitat or their habits or behaviors. But I am so intimate with where the bears are that I do know where to go to set up, usually before they get there. So this would be a classic situation where the tide's gone out and the river mouth is exposed, and I know bears are going to show up. So we sit down and we just wait for them. And we sit in these small groups. So, a lot of people, is this safe? Well, really, the bears are ignoring us. They just know. Bears are very, very intelligent, and through the years, they've understood that these little groups of people are not going to hurt them. They're not going to bother them. They can never get food from us, so there's no reason to approach us or interact with us. We just sit there, so they just walk around us like we're not even there, and it's like we're invisible. A lot of people ask, do I carry a gun? And I do not. For years it's been a national park, and so there's no guns, which I think is one of the greatest things. Now, do I carry any kind of backup for protection? And you'll see this little hand flare that I have in my hand. That is it's a 16,000 candle flare that will just make a ball of fire that will scare a bear to the next bay. I've only, in 12 years of working around these bears, pretty much every day for 4 months a year, just surrounded by as many bears as I can find, I've only had to use these 3 times, and usually there were camping situations, and I think only 1 time did I have to use it while I was bear viewing, and they work like a charm. So I also do carry pepper spray, but it's usually buried in the pack, and I've never had to use it. These bears are very easy to get along with. People can be a little bit apprehensive at first, but that's the excitement. I mean, this is the real deal. This is the real deal, and it is exciting, but it is 100% safe. And within 15 to 20 minutes of being around these bears, even folks that are a little bit scared, they're like, wow, I understand now. This is awesome. These bears are peaceful, they're intelligent, they're predictable, and they don't mind us being there. I think that's the cool part. So we go into their habitat, and we're very submissive, and we sit. And I think sitting down and not moving is the reason why these bears have learned that they can trust us. There's a couple more people and bear shots. Just fading away in the habitat, becoming invisible. Like I like to say that a bear will look at us. Bears got lots of important things to worry about. How to get food, what's dangerous, whatever. We're just not part of that. and we just sort of fade away, just like a flock of gulls flying overhead, or clouds or the sun. We're just one of those non-factors. They know they can't come up and touch us because I will yell at them, and it only takes once, and they never do it again. They can be a little bit curious, but it's never a threatening situation. There's a group of natural habitat travelers, all of which have come back since to repeat the trip. A couple of them are coming back this summer. Oh, and another thing, I'm going to go back to that slide. This is only a 6-person trip, which is pretty cool. I mean, even though we've got a big boat, we've only got 6 people, and the reason for that is that's a limit where we're far below where we would even raise an eyebrow from a bear. I mean, it's a small group. We can get into places, and everybody can get their own personal attention, like their questions answered and stuff like that. But mostly, that's how we can be around the bears close without disturbing them. And it's a small, intimate group. So I'll just talk a little bit about the bears and what they do in this, and what I would call is the perfect bear paradise. This is a place where bears in the ocean are intimately associated. These bears live by the ocean. They live in tune with the tides, and they do very well, and they make a living off what the ocean provides for them. At low tides, you get this sort of volcanic ash, glacial silt mud flats that is full of marine worms, clams, and these small, like eel-like fish called sand lances, which at low tides bury themselves in the wet sand. The bears are very intelligent, and they go down and they utilize these food sources at low tide. And we spend a lot of our time out on these sandbars with the glaciers overhead and the mountains overhead, watching these bears do a very unique behavior that's not really seen anywhere else. And it's the coast of Katmai is famous for the bears that are digging the clams. These clams that they get, they can be 7-8 inches long. They're big clams. Bears can eat hundreds of them at a low tide. Very difficult. I mean, if you try to dig one with your hands, there's no way. You'd have to have a special shovel and really be good at it. You have to find out where the clam is. But a bear can smell them because they got like that sense of smell I was talking about earlier. And they're also amazing diggers. They got these long claws that are specialized for digging, and can get these clams before they disappear. At high tide, the bears go into these river mouth valleys where there are these patches of extremely nutritious sedges, which is probably 30% protein value digestible, which is very, very high. This is not normal grass. Bears, well, it's a different. Bears have a simple stomach, and they can't digest plant material, say like a horse or a moose or a cow, but they can digest these very, very rich intertidal sedges. And this is an early season food source in June and July, and sometimes up into August, and attracts a very, very large concentrations of bears. And just to see these bears with this bright, beautiful green grass and the mountains overhead, you can't really put it into words, and even pictures like this don't do it justice. But it's awesome. You're just in this pasture of grizzlies. It's awesome. A lot of times, we run trips before the salmon run even starts. The salmon come in sometimes in July, and it's kind of unpredictable when they're going to show up. And but it doesn't matter if the fish are in there or not. If they're not, if they are, it's great, and I'll show some pictures of that later. But if they're not, they tend to be, they have more free time on their hands, and they do a lot of socializing and relaxing and then grazing and things like that. So you get to see the other side of the brown bear when they're not gorging on salmon. Lots of really amazing social behaviors. And this is just very, very social animals here because the habitat is concentrated. The food sources are very concentrated in the small areas. You get a lot of bears in one spot, so you get lots of socialized interactions. Mating season is one thing. The females come down to these meadows because they're concerned with one thing, is putting on calories. Like single female is going to have cubs, she needs to have a ton of fat. So she's going to come down and eat, and the males during June and part of July want to mate. So they come in and follow, and you get these males from all over the place. And the mating season of bears is something that's been shrouded in mystery for so long because it's a very complex thing, and I could go on. I could do I have an hour-and-a-half presentation on bear reproductive biology, talking about all the interesting things that go on here, but I don't have time for that now. But it's an amazing thing to see, and this is one of the only places where it all happens out in the open, and it just ranks these complex interactions between males and the selection of females. A lot of really bizarre body language displays, and there's all kinds of ritualistic behaviors which are really cool, and some competition. You know, you got to think about the fact that a bear keeps her cubs for 3 years, sometimes even 4 summers. So there's not that many single females available for all these willing and males. So the males have to fight pretty hard to get access to these females. It's very competitive. And that's one reason why you have what's known as sexual dimorphism, is a difference between the appearance of the male and the female, sexual dimorphism. This would be a classic male in his prime on the right, and this would be a classic female in her prime on the left. The male is built like that. Looks like he's spent years training in a gym or something. He's built like that because the biggest, strongest bears get to mate the most, and so that's natural selection at work. It selects for these giant males that are twice as large as the females. The females are actually more efficient at making a living on the landscape. They can move across the land from food source to food source more efficiently because they need to be most efficient for calories, because they're going to be producing cubs. So she's got 6 teats there, you can see. This is a bear that I've known as Paula, and the male is Pythagoras. They're 2 of my favorite bears. We try not to, well, it's a little bit of a strange thing why we name bears. I don't want to anthropomorphize, and they're not, you know, pets or anything like that, but bears have so much personality, each one, and they're all individuals, and that's something that you just got to see to understand. It would be a shame not to name them, because, you know, there's a big difference between just seeing some sow and Paula. Paula's famous, and she's got a lot of stories and a lot of history. I've spent time around these bears. I remember this bear Paula when she was a spring cub, and now she's had 3 or 4 families that I've watched grow, and so it's incredible watching these bears. Now, when they do have cubs, the coast of Katmai is famous for mothers and cubs. Of course, I have to say, how can we possibly view grizzlies and cubs safely? It's the same thing. If the only reason why a grizzly mother is dangerous is if she feels that something is a threat to her cubs, and she will fight to the death over a threat. But we're not a threat, so it's not an issue. They don't mind us being there. They'll even bring it up, and very close. Another sort of side note is that you know, some of these large males and also packs of wolves can be dangerous to cubs, and I think over history, those animals tend to give us a little bit more space, us, and so the females realize that, and so sometimes they'll actually come over and hang out because they feel more secure around us. It's not something that we try not to have any effect on their behavior, but it does happen, and we do enjoy it. And this female's teaching this little spring cub who's never seen people before, hey, these small groups of people, they're not a threat, and we can go up and graze around them. The mothers tend to almost seem like they ignore us, but the cubs, when they first see people, it's wow. Imagine what we smell like to a bear that has 2,000 times better sense of smell than we do, what we look like, sound like. Really cool, intimate experiences with mothers and cubs. We'll see bears nursing. Females are very picky about where they nurse because they feel vulnerable. But when you have a female come up, lay down next to you, nurse, you can't even put that into words. What kind of experience that's like. Bears play a lot, especially females with cubs, and that's just the beginning of their social development. So mother bears usually have a routine, and it has to do with eating and nursing, sleeping, and playing. So they spend a good deal of time playing. This play behavior is very important because I think it's where a bear learns how to fight. And they're not trying to hurt each other, but fighting is something that happens when you're a bear living in such a dense population of other bears. You have to fight to defend your cubs, defend yourself, defend your food sources, to defend your female if you're going to mate. So fighting is an important part of being a bear, and they learn how to do that through playing. So this would be sparring. We call it sparring, sort of play fighting. And and the subadults, and even adult bears, spend an inordinate amount of time playing, wrestling, and it's amazing to watch. So sometime during July, the fish do come in, and they come in through August. And July and August is when we run our trips. So not all the trips will see salmon fishing, but most of them do to some degree. And this is where the bears achieve their great size. They can eat as much as 150 to a couple of 100 pounds of salmon a day. They can gain 3 to even 7 pounds of fat a day during this July to September period. The fish run does go all the way up in October as well. It's 5 species of salmon that come into in this area. Mostly it's the pinks, chums, and silvers are what we see the bears catching. Seeing a bear fishing is like watching nature's greatest athlete in its most practiced event. It's awesome. Bears really are, they seem to be perfectly built for it. They're powerful enough and big enough to get through that water at high speeds. They've also got their claws, and they're very nimble with their paws, and they learn strategies of how to catch fish, which is not easy to get a fish in the water. But and remember, as I said, all these bears are going to fill up their bellies, and they're going to go take a nap in the woods, and they're going to use the bathroom. And when they do that, they're going to be fertilizing all of the riparian corridors, all of that riverside habitat, and that's going to make it more productive for future generations of salmon. Most of the salmon they eat have already spawned. The reason the salmon are coming in is they've gotten large in the ocean, and they come back to where they were hatched, and to lay their own eggs. And the strategy for salmon is they put so much investment in their eggs that they run out of gas totally, and they die. And then they're floating around in the water, and that's when bears do most of their feeding. I do like to provide photography instruction to anybody that wants it on the trips, and here would be an interesting thing where we've got a bear that just happens to be sitting still at the base of a waterfall in sort of low light conditions, and so we can use the classic waterfall silky water techniques. And if you're lucky enough to have a bear that's just sitting there, you can get a shot like this, although it's not perfect. The bear moved its head a little bit, made it a little bit blurry, but it's cool. So those are salmon eggs. That's just about 100% fat, but the richest thing you can think of. This is a cool place that sometimes is active when we're on trips. Call it the Plunge Rock. For hundreds of years, bears have used this rock to jump into the pool of water to get salmon that don't really know they're there. This is just another example of bears using an amazing strategy to get salmon, and bears are very, very smart. So, and they've been using this rock so much that there's been grooves worn in smooth where the bear's feet are, where they launch. There's a mother and cub waiting on the launch. The Plunge Rock. And she's just got everything. She's got the angle of refraction figured out, everything, and the cub is watching everything she's doing. Cubs learn from their mother. You have to be. It takes a lot to be a bear, and the mother spends 4 years teaching her cub how to be a bear. And one of the strategies here is how to use the Plunge Rock. The cub is taking it all in. Very cool. Here's another cool story. This is one of my other very favorite bears. named it after my wife Melissa because of her feisty spirit. And she's just awesome. She's great around us. She loves hanging around folks. And I think a lot of times the bears see that we're, I mentioned how they ignore us so much, but I really think that they see us appreciating them, and they feel that. And they know that we admire them, and I think in a way that they like being around us for some reason. It gets a little weird, but if you're out there and you notice some of these bears, the way they look at you, the way they come over and hang out, it's just so different from the way other humans and other places get along with bears, where it's so much stress involved, where they're afraid of people and people are afraid of them. This is a place where bears and people actually get along. And it's because the bears are willing to do it. They're non-confrontational, they're smart. They're actually deep down really good-natured animals, unless they have a reason not to be. But the people that have come to this area over the years have been very responsible, very respectful, and it's fostered this amazing relationship. But anyway, so the salmon that Melissa's catching right now are silvers. It's the biggest, strongest salmon, and they're very difficult to catch for the bears. And I've never seen this before, not even close, but I'll leave it to Melissa to get. She caught 2 silvers at the same time. So the cub comes over and grabs one, and she's being perfectly still, waiting for help from the cub. Now, there's a big male sees this and says, wow, 2 fish, that's a little greedy, like I want one of those. Well, Melissa's not going to give up anything. So she drops her fish. Her cub, we named it Scout, he runs off with the other fish, and he's already eaten. He knows mom's going to take care of business. So she drops that fish and squares off with him. And we're across the river here with beautiful light. And she just goes on in this incredible fight with this monster. This female is the toughest. She's built like a bulldog. And there's almost no females that attempt to go after a male like this, but Melissa's special, very, very dominant. And they get into a prison fight. She jumps up and grabs him by the throat and then launches herself up in the air. Although he does outweigh her by hundreds of pounds, she's just bigger. She's just meaner. But she does actually lose this fight. This guy's a little bit too big. He does throw down. So those are bears. There's a lot of ways to see other cool bear shots and videos and stuff like that. I'll just say right now real quick, just remind you guys that go into the Natural Habitat channel on YouTube. I've posted footage of bears and wolves and all sorts of things from these trips, and that's the best way to actually see it. So other animals, these are oyster catchers, and it's where people are respectful to wildlife. The wildlife becomes tolerant and easy to view, and oyster catchers are very elusive birds, and they don't really like people hanging around their chicks, but the Katmai coast is an exception. And for years I watched this incredible little couple of oyster catchers that have no fear of us raise their chicks all summer. What really cool birds with these big beaks. These are Arctic terns on a rock. This is a female coming up with a sand lance to feed her chick. And this is the stuff we see just back and forth on the boat. So it's just wildlife's all around, everywhere. In the past 3 years, we've done exceptionally well with wolves. In fact, 100% of our natural habitat trips last year saw wolves very up close, very, very cool. Amazing stuff. But I have to say that this is not a wolf viewing trip. I don't know what's going to happen from year to year. Packs move, packs die out, who knows. So you cannot come on this trip expecting to see wolves, but it's a nice bonus. Especially in the last few years. I have no idea if they're going to use this den site again, but they had a den right above the meadow where we watch bears. So for 3 years in a row, we watched a wolf family raise its pups. And if you go to that video, Kingdom of the Grizzlies on YouTube, on the Natural Habitat channel, it's got all kinds of footage of the parents feeding the pups and things like that in front of us. The reason these wolves are down here, in the winter they go after moose, but in the summer moose are more difficult to get because there's no snow on the ground, so they can run fast. And the wolves go after easier food sources. Those meadows that I'm talking about, the sedge meadows, are very productive for small mammals, and they eat a lot of small mammals. They also come down and they fish inside the bears. Some wolf shots. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to expedite a little bit. My computer's doing. Okay. I don't know what happened. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Natural Habitat, give me a call if you
Yep.
cannot hear me.
We can hear you, Brad.
Okay, good. I don't know what happened. Okay, great. And oftentimes these wolves will actually interact with the bears. Here's a picture of a wolf fishing for salmon. Red foxes used to be much more prolific in this area before the wolves came down, and now they're more elusive, but we almost always see red foxes in the area, and they utilize the same food sources as the bears. They come down and they get sand lances and clams and things. Like I said, small mammals, and the foxes have no fear of people. They'll just come right up to us. This is a dead flounder. So again, another species of animal. You got the bears, the wolves, and the foxes all utilizing sources from the ocean. In the ocean, of course, a lot of food, and you got a lot of harbor seals that we see occasionally. Sea lions that will be in addition to the amazing sea lion viewing that's often seen at Kodiak with Marty and Marion. Doll porpoises are what we probably see the most often every time we take the boat to another bay. For some reason, I don't know why exactly, but these doll porpoises, which are like, they look like little miniature killer whales, will ride the bow. Bald eagles, of course, they're everywhere. And there's several nest spots that we go view the chicks and the parents. The world's most charismatic bird, the puffins. There's two species of puffins that we view either in the water and on little rookery islands. Timing right, everything's right, and we can get to these places. Those are a horned puffin before and tufted puffins. So we have both. And then lots of other birds that utilize this habitat, such as the merganser, which is a fish-eating duck. Fish-eating, a fancy word for that's piscivore. It's got a serrated bill, super fast, torpedo-like swimmer, and it goes down and it eats a variety of fish. A lot of times right in front of us and then in the ultimate wolverine. People can spend their whole life in wolverine habitat, never see one. They're probably the most elusive, difficult to see animal in North America. I've seen about 12 in the wild, all on the coast of Katmai. We usually have about one sighting a year. It's not something you'd expect, but if you were, statistically, if you were going to go somewhere and you wanted to see a wolverine, this would be the place. But even here, your chances are very, very slim. But we do see them occasionally. Wolverines are just amazing animals, and they come down to get scraps of salmon and things like that. This is, I think the Katmai Coast is a place where the largest moose in the world, this is my own opinion and it's been argued, but the largest moose in the world live because there's not that many moose, and you probably are not going to see them. But since there's not many moose, the reason there's not many moose is because there's a lot of bears and a lot of wolves. The moose that do survive have got wonderful habitat, and there's no trophy hunting. So there's nobody's going to try to get this guy for his wall mount or anything like that. So these moose live big and old, and they grow huge. But it's not a very good place to see moose. They're very elusive and shy. We're usually hanging around where the bears are. The moose don't want to be around that. So, but about once a week or so, we'll see a moose. That's sometimes like this day. We got very lucky. So that's the Kodiak to Katmai trip. I also wanted to just talk about, just very briefly, so we're going to Katmai, but we're not going to go to the famous Brooks Falls. There's another trip the Natural Habitat does. It's the Ultimate Alaska trip. And that one does go to Katmai at Brooks. We cannot access it because it's on the other side of the divide. It's inland. But this is an awesome experience. It's very different than the Coast to Katmai trip. I would say it's complementary. A lot of times people that want the ultimate Alaska experience, they go to Alaska, they want to see it all and see the best. They actually do these trips back to back, Ultimate Alaska and then the trip with me. And you do get to see it all. And this would be Brooks. It's a famous place, amazing place to see bears. It's a little bit more developed and you're up on a platform, but this number of bears and to see a spectacle like this is like not only bear viewing, but it's like seeing the Grand Canyon. It's such a famous sight that it just kind of takes your breath away to see it. These are pictures taken by Eric Rock, who's our lead naturalist and extremely good photographer, and he donated these pictures, and he does guide these trips. So he's taking some trips of these bears. And all these characters come in, and they all have different personalities and different feeding styles. And it's an awesome place to see, but you won't see it on the trip with me. That trip is very good. I think that if you're looking at the Katmai trip, the Kodiak to Katmai trip, and you're saying, well, you know, I don't really, you know, it is the real Alaska. It is an adventure, and the ultimate Alaska trip is a bit easier. It's a bit easier. The Kodiak to Katmai trip is it's boat based. It's a lot of outside stuff, and it's a serious adventure. It's a bit more difficult than the ultimate Alaska trip. So there's plenty of ways to see Alaska with natural habitat, and all of them are amazing. Check that out. There, got that. As the salmon's leaping from the falls right into the bear's mouth. The ultimate Alaska trip also visits the famous Denali National Park, where you'll see wildlife that's more interior. This is a picture by Jamie and Lisa Johnson, who are very good friends of mine, and they've been my photography mentors for years. And they went to Denali, and you can see Dall sheep and lynx, things like that we won't see in the Kodiak Katmai portion of the trip. That is this is my final slide, and this is a picture, a place called Geographic Harbor, where there's a bear sitting in the sun at the end of a rainbow. There's also the website, nathab.com, that you can get information on these trips. My slides should be scooted over a little bit, but that's .com, and I'm not going to mess with it now, but it's www.nathab.com, and then the phone number for the adventure specialists. And I guess now we will open it for questions if there's any time.
Hey, Brad. Yep, there is time. I think we'll run a little bit past the hour because we have so many good questions. So if you have some time, we'll stick around and get some of those answered. There's a question here from several people about when the best time would be to travel, particularly if you wanted to see the cubs.
All the natural habitat trips are scheduled in that window of good cubs. If you were to go in early June, you'd see more mating season behavior, but because of all these giant males walking around, you'd see less cubs. And as mating season behavior tails off, some of the huge males disappear somewhere else. That's when the females with cubs emerge. And so all the NatHab trips in our windows are prime times for viewing cubs.
Okay. Good. And I think you talked a little bit about how long the trips are. Just a quick recap. How long are these trips? 7
to 8 days, depending on which trip you choose, 7 or 8. And the portion on the boat with me and the bears is 4 days, 3 nights.
Okay.
So then there's time in Kodiak on either end.
Great. Now,
and there's a full itinerary on the website. If you go to the trip description, just to review, it'll go through all the times and things like that. Okay.
Are these family-oriented trips? Are they appropriate for families with kids?
They are, yeah. And we've done, over the years, we've done family-based trips where it's just a family of 6, grandparents, parents, and kids, and it's just them and us. And so that's the great thing about a small trip. But it's appropriate. I mean, of course. I think from the description and the pictures, there's going to be, it's fairly intense that, the attention span of the child would need to be very focused on enjoying wildlife. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess it would be exceptions to where maybe some kids just wouldn't be ready or interested enough in it. But we do have lots of kids, and they love it if they're adventurous and they're bear kids. And I love working with kids. So there's nothing. Because that's the future. So if you can change a child, give them an experience like this, that they'll never forget it, and then that's gonna, that early exposure to me is so important. And
mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. What about clothing and being having the proper attire? Do you provide hip boots or any sort of coats or clothing for travelers?
We do provide hip boots, and if somebody loses a raincoat or forgets it, we have extras. But because you'll be in Kodiak as well, You'll need to bring your own rain gear, yeah, and you bring some warm weather gear because temperatures average about 60 degrees. You get these long days, and it pretty much sticks right around 60, give or take 10 degrees. And but if it's windy, which it often is breezy where we're at, and if it's raining, which sometimes it is, it's going to be a very cold 60. So you need to dress with, you need to bring along things like thermal underwear and stuff like that. So you may not need it, but you need to dress very warmly. You need to bring lots of warm weather stuff and rain gear as well. And then we provide the footwear, the hip boots that you need.
Good. Okay. All right. Let's talk about food for a minute. What sort of meals are served? Is it pretty much all inclusive? Breakfast, lunch, dinner? Are there snacks? Maybe you can just give us a rundown about food.
Oh, just as with every natural habitat trip, you will not lose weight. we feed the heck out of you. On the boat, we have 5-star chef, and the food is always one of the highlights. And a lot of it's local Alaskan seafood, but if you don't like seafood, the chef will prepare whatever you want. She'll cater to vegan stuff, to vegetarian stuff. And when you're booking your trip, you will fill out that information, and we will customize whatever you need. But in general, if you just said eat anything, you'd be eating a lot of stuff that you would not be able to get anywhere else, such as fresh halibut, scallops, salmon, some of the stuff we even catch on the boat that day, or the crew will while we're watching bears and things like that. So, yeah. And then when you're in Kodiak, you visit. You eat at the Kodiak's best places. All meals are included, and we do have plenty of snacks. I'll bring snacks out there, and when we're in a place that's appropriate to eat, when we're not surrounded by bears, we will sometimes even have picnics on the beach and things like that. So, yeah, there's plenty of food for everybody. Good food.
Excellent. Here's a question about packing. Is there a weight limit for photo gear on the flight to Hello Bay?
There are some weight restrictions on the flight, but we always work it out. Bring what you need. You can bring the big lenses. There's a total weight limit, but it always balances itself out, and that can be something. And of course, that's going to be something that can be worked out in advance when you get to Kodiak. Linda will help with that, and the air service is very, very good at doing that. So we're used to so generally a weight limit, although there technically is one, is never a problem. Bring what you want, bring what you need, and then we work it out.
Okay, good. Mosquitoes, are there lots of mosquitoes?
Alaska is well known for its insects in the summer, but the coast of Katmai is also well known to be one of the best places because we're right near the ocean, a lot of breeze. It's cooler. You don't get those like in the interior. It's warmer and there's more fresh water and there's less wind. So if you compare it to interior Alaska or the Arctic, it is very, very good. But there are some bugs, and I do have head nets, and that sometimes some of the bugs can be a little bit. They can come out, and then we'll have head nets, and then you can wear repellent and things like that. So it's easily controlled. It's rarely extreme. It's much better than other places in the state. Okay.
And camping, did you say that guests will be camping on these trips?
No camping on this trip, no. No, it's all, you'll be sleeping on the boat. And I think, one thing that to notice is that they're, on the boat you will be sharing bathrooms, but it's such a small group of people, it's never a problem. So each boat has 2 bathrooms, and so you might, we usually, kind of split it up between staying upstairs and downstairs. And so, though it sounds intimidating to share bathrooms, it's way easier than people expect. It's, but yes, there's no camping, and you're staying on the boat in nice, comfortable quarters.
Great. And how many guests will you be traveling with?
The max for these trips is 6.
6, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's the smallest max number of any NatHab trip, and I think that all NatHab, natural habitat specializes in small groups, and because that's where you get the best experiences. You want to be traveling with 15 people or something, but this is even half of that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Okay, you mentioned that you like to help people with their photography. There's lots of questions here about the photos that you took. How far away were you when you took those? And then there's a question about whether there's someone on each trip that will be able to assist folks with photography. Let me give us a little bit more info about that.
Okay, so when you're in Kodiak, Marion is an excellent person. She's a professional photographer, just a very, very successful, wonderful photographer, and does a lot of teaching and talking about photos when you're with her. And then when you're out with me, I would be the person to assist, and I can assist at any level from how do you turn your point and shoot on all the way up to talking about ISOs and editing and all the top stuff. So yes, yeah, you get lots of personal instruction. I can teach people how to use their cameras from scratch, and I do that very often. It's a great place to learn. I always do recommend people spending the time to understand their basics, because they'll get more out of their photography if they don't have to spend time figuring out how to turn it on but yeah, so there's a lot of natural history interpretation for everybody, but for people that want the photo talk, we certainly do a lot of instruction, and that would be me that does that. And as far as how close are you, those distances, the pictures were shot from between a 400 lens and then even wide angle lenses, and the bears are photographed from 100 yards away all the way to 10 feet away.
Wow, amazing. What about fitness level? How fit do you need to be? Are these trips difficult?
The trips are not difficult, but we have listed them as moderate just to make sure that people are able to basically just climb out a skiff into the water and walk through shallow water, cross shallow streams. We don't do a ton of hiking. We do mostly you walk a quarter mile at the most, and then do a lot of sitting and waiting, and then we'll make small movements after that. So it's not a difficult hiking trip, but you do, to be fair to the other people on the trip, and everybody will get the most out of it if they can walk a mile, if they can walk through water over uneven ground. There's no boardwalks, trails. It's all just wilderness. So I guess it really depends on your definition of a good fitness level, but you need to be able to walk through water, jump in, or climb out of a boat, and all this stuff. I'm there to help everyone. So we've had a wide range of folks. We've had people in their mid-90s take the trip, but they're fit 90s. But we will cater to whatever we can. But I do encourage people to have a decent level of agility and fitness before they do the trip.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Talk just for a minute about on board. There's a question here about whether a guest could recharge their batteries on board. So if you could talk just for a minute about some of the features of the boat.
We have full power. We have normal AC outlets on board. We have plenty of room for everybody to charge everything from laptops to batteries, for sure. Yeah, it's just a fully functional live-aboard boat. That's what those are. So yeah, we have everything that you'd need.
And do you run across rangers while you're out? I mean, I know you're in some pretty remote areas. Do you actually see any rangers while you're out in the areas either?
Not very often, but sometimes. I'm friends with all the rangers. In the past, I've even used to guide with one of the rangers that worked out there for years. We're very good relations with the Park Service. They respect us a lot, and then vice versa. So yeah, we see rangers every once in a while. We will see other bear viewers occasionally too, such as people come in for the day. They'll come in for 4 hours, usually in the middle of the day, and we're out usually in the morning and the evening, and then we go back for lunch. But yeah, so we will see other people. It's not 100% devoid of people. Sometimes there'll be yeah, film crews and things like that out there that but yeah, so we'll see some people,
Okay.
but it's wilderness, it's remote.
Okay. There's a series of questions actually about bears. So I think we've answered a lot about the trip. I know I didn't get them all, but I want to ask you a few questions about bears because there are a lot here about that. So I don't want to ignore those. This question, early on you showed a map that showed that grizzlies have once been on the shores of the Hudson Bay. Did they share territory with the polar bear?
Oh, great question. Yes, they did share territory with polar bears there, and also on the north coast of Canada and the north coast of Alaska this year. Now, recently, grizzlies have been seen again on the shore of Hudson Bay in polar bear area. You're not really going to see them together that much, or if ever, but they have hybridized. You'll get an adventurous male grizzly in mating season go out onto the ice and find a willing female polar bear, and they can actually mate and have cubs. So they're very close genetically, and they can actually even have fertile cubs. Yes.
Great. Now, what about Jan's wondering whether there's a slight chance that she would get to see a white ghost or spirit bear in Alaska.
No, that is what a spirit bear is a black bear in a white color phase, and that is only found in the Kermode Island region of British Columbia, and so that's what that is. And Natural Habitat does run an amazing trip down there. I didn't include any pictures, but every once in a while there will be a white grizzly, and I've got pictures of them. I just didn't include them. But yeah, there's a rare genetic variant of grizzly that's white, and so over the years we've seen a few.
Okay.
But that's not a spirit bear. That's just a white grizzly.
Okay. Do females have cubs every year, even if she keeps older cubs for 3 to 4 years?
No. When a female is raising her cubs, her hormones limit the fact she cannot get pregnant, so she will not go into estrus and be available to mate until she's kicked her other cubs out. And so a female is not going to mate. She's not going to have cubs of different ages. She has one litter. She raises them. She does not go into estrus during that time of raising, kicks her cubs out, mates that same year, and then so it's like every 4 years.
Okay. Another good question here. To your knowledge, do bears become nearsighted or farsighted like humans do?
That's a good question. I imagine there's a lot of variation, and some bears have better vision than others. I don't think you can avoid that. But they have vision just about as good as we can, and I think in a lot of ways it's better than ours. They do see in color, unlike other predators, and they will see shadows, moving shapes of fish in the water that I can't see with my naked eye, even though I'm the same distance away. So oftentimes I'm surprised at the visual acuity of bears, especially since everybody thinks they're blind, which they're not. The reason why people think they're blind is because when they're looking at something, a lot of times they're sniffing and standing up, like almost like, I don't know, I can't see what's there, but I'm going to try to smell it. But they can see it, but they also want to get the scent. And because we have no sense of smell whatsoever, compared to them, we don't understand the need to get a scent. So it looks like they're blind, but they're not. They have good vision.
Yeah, okay. This question, you say that bears have other priorities like looking for food. Don't they feel that we're a threat, as in, competition for this food, and want us to get out of the way if we're observing?
I'm very careful about where we position ourselves so that we don't get in the way of a bear so I know how a bear is going to act, and so I make sure that, well, we need to make sure we have enough room between here and here, and everything's different. But no, they don't look at us as a competition at all. And so, no, and that's just because humans haven't made mistakes out there. We've acted responsibly and respectful, and those bears pretty much ignore us. We're a non-issue to them when we show up. And if I ever sense that a bear is uncomfortable with their presence, which is very, very rarely, we will back up. But the fact that we're sitting down, when we sit, it makes a bear feel very comfortable. And if you see the slide that's up right now, that bear's sitting, That bear is actually sitting there because there's another bear coming downstream. The bear was originally standing. The bear at the end of the rainbow there wanted to get along with the other bear and show through body language that it was not a threat, did not want a confrontation, was not going to disturb or bother the other bear. They wanted to get along in the same place, and so that bear sits down, not because it's tired, but because it wants to convey that sort of peaceful body language to get along. And so we copy that. And so if a bear's upset with us and getting ready to leave the area, which is what they do when they don't like us, we will sit down, and 99% of the time that makes a bear feel very comfortable. Once we sit and settle down, bears totally disregard us. But remember, the bears that live here have been seeing people since they were cubs. This is probably going on over 20 years of doing this. Never been an attack or anything, and the amount of disturbance that the bear viewers cause is extremely minimal. And anyway, and I did mention how much I do love bears. That's my top priority, and we make sure that we don't affect their behaviors.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions, Brad, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But quite a few folks are asking about whether the guides are armed for protection. So would you mind addressing that, and then we'll get close to wrapping it up here.
One of the reasons why the bears do not feel threatened by humans is that bears have never been shot out here, and sometimes people shoot bears for defense. But there's other ways to defend yourself against bears that don't have anything to do with guns, and actually studies have shown that using firearms is not a safe method to protect yourself from a bear. So because it's been a law until just recently, you can't carry firearms in national parks, and so nobody's carried a gun in Katmai, and that includes myself. And so there's been no need, no reason. I don't think it's a good, safe way to actually protect yourself. So the guides are not armed with firearms, but I do have safety flares, which are far, far more effective and safe than firearms, and also pepper spray. So we're armed with those things, but they're non-lethal deterrents that are 100% effective.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we'll make the last question. There were a couple of folks that are interested in whether there is actually still space available for this summer. Do you know if there's still space available?
There is space available. We're running more destinations this year due to high demand, and a lot of repeat folks coming back this year from last year and the year before. So there's been some new departures opened up, and there is still some space available. Yes. Okay,
good. All right. Well, I know that we didn't get to everyone's questions. There's still 51 questions in the queue. We could be here another hour trying to get through all the questions, and every single question is important. I know that. And so Megan and I are going to send the rest of the questions over to the staff at NetHab so that they can personally address those. So I'll turn it back over to you, Brad, now for anything you'd like to share with the audience before we close.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. I'm actually afraid to know how many people are listening. Try to just picture myself talking to 2 or 3 people. But I'm glad everybody's out there listening and have the interest, and I appreciate your time. If you want to see and hear more stuff from me about Alaska in general and all sorts of stuff, I do have a blog that's sponsored by Natural Habitat where I post videos. So if you want to see some of that the Kingdom of the Grizzlies video I talked about, it's on there, and stories about bears, pictures of bears, and then Alaska life in general, conservation issues, all sorts of stuff. You can visit my blog, and it's really easy. It's www.alaskabearsandwolves, one word, alaskabearsandwolves.com. And if you guys tuned into this webinar, you probably have already seen that, but that's another good place to just kind of scroll through and get questions answered and stuff like that. Now if you ask questions on that blog, remember that I'm actually leaving for China in 3 days. I'll be over there for 2 months guiding trips, and I'm not going to be available. And then after that, I'm on the boat, and there's no internet access on the boat, which may have answered a few questions. So I can't not ignoring you guys. Just so yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, it just makes me very, very proud of the bears that they allow themselves for us to take trips like this, allows them to show people the best of bears and change the misconceptions and threats, and I think that's the key to conserving them. And each year people come out and they realize that these are some of the most amazing animals on the planet, and they deserve to be protected, and they're worth a lot more alive than dead. And there's only one way to really do that, and that's go see them yourself and enjoy them, and then spread the word once you've fallen in love with them, which you will.
Wonderful.
That's about it.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much. And thanks to Megan, who's been behind the scenes helping me answer questions. It's always a pleasure working with Megan as well. And if you did not see Megan's note, everyone, we will have this replay loaded up to the NetHab.com website within the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you came late, you can enjoy that replay within the next day or so. But now it's time for us to say good day and conclude our webinar. Goodbye, everyone.